There are souls in this world who feel everything. They walk into a room and sense the unspoken stories hanging in the air. They love so deeply it hurts. They carry beauty and pain in the same breath. And yet they are always told they need to be healed, that something in them is broken, too fragile, too sensitive for this world. But what if sensitivity was never a wound? What if it is an instrument, a finely tuned heart that only needs tuning silence, not fixing noise? Swami Sivananda Radha once said, "When you are silent, the world begins to speak." So let us listen, not to the noise of becoming, but to the quiet that reveals we have always been whole. There comes a moment when your mind feels like a crowded room. Advice, expectations, voices of past teachers and future fears, all speaking at once. You keep searching for the one sentence that will heal it all. But silence does not shout. It waits. You may think you are exhausted because of life, but what drains you is the constant inner conversation, the endless effort to fix what was never broken. Radha called this the fatigue of striving. She said, "The mind that cannot rest cannot receive." Healing does not enter through effort. It enters through stillness. Everywhere today, we hear about healing. Shadow work, self-improvement, energy cleansing, emotional release. All noble, all sincere. Yet sometimes the obsession with healing becomes another form of noise. We treat peace like a project, turning spirituality into a checklist. We think enlightenment will arrive once we've repaired every crack. But cracks are how the light breathes. Radha would smile and say, "You don't polish the lamp by scrubbing the flame." The moment you stop trying to fix the self, awareness begins to shine by itself. Healing, in truth, is not something you do. It's what happens when you stop interfering. Long before modern therapy or spiritual vocabulary, ancient sages prescribed one thing for a restless heart: silence. They knew silence is not absence. It is presence intensified. It is the space where consciousness remembers itself. When Radha founded her ashram, she would ask her students to spend hours in quiet tasks, sweeping, cooking, walking. Not to escape thought, but to meet it in gentleness. She said, "Silence is not a punishment, it is a mirror. When you enter that mirror, you discover your reflection is not fragile, it is infinite." Sensitive souls often confuse empathy with responsibility. You feel others' pain and think you must fix it. You sense disharmony and rush to make it right. And slowly, you begin carrying burdens that don't belong to you. But sensitivity without silence becomes suffering. It is like a harp placed in a storm. Every wind makes it ache. Silence is what shelters the harp. It teaches you to discern what vibration belongs to the world and what belongs to your own heart. Radha taught, "The soul has its own tone. Find it and you will not drown in the noise of others." So instead of asking, "How do I heal this?" ask, "What part of this is even mine?" True solitude is not loneliness. It is intimacy with the self. You don't go to the forest to escape people. You go to remember your own voice. Radha spent years in silence by the river Ganges before returning to the West. She said that the first days were agony, the mind screaming, demanding conversation. But eventually, the scream dissolved into something vast. And that vastness began to speak, not in words, but in knowing. This is the silence that heals, the kind that doesn't erase your humanity, but amplifies your divinity. Every sensitive soul eventually falls into this trap, believing peace will come when the chaos ends. But chaos never ends. It transforms. The truth is uncomfortable. You do not heal by eliminating pain. You heal by changing your relationship with it. When you sit quietly with sorrow, without running, without labeling it, something begins to shift. The sorrow unfolds like a closed flower. It was never against you. It was always a messenger, asking to be felt fully, once. Radha said, "Awareness is the light that dissolves what awareness sees." The very act of observing your pain begins to free you from it. Within you there is a temple, and its gate is silence. You cannot enter it through intellect or effort. You can only enter by laying your mind at its door. Inside that temple, the soul doesn't speak in language. It communicates through peace. The walls of this temple are built from every quiet moment you've honored. Every sunrise you watched without photographing. Every tear you allowed without explaining. Every breath that met stillness willingly. Radha called this the yoga of awareness. Not performing postures, but living in presence. To her, meditation was not escape, it was homecoming. If you listen deeply enough, you'll realize silence isn't empty. It hums, it breathes, it vibrates with creation itself. Every sacred scripture began in silence before it became a word. Every symphony was silence before it found a note. And every healing you seek is silence before it becomes understanding. When you grow still, you join that creative pulse again. Your sensitivity transforms from burden to blessing. You stop reacting and start resonating. Stillness is not weakness. It is a strength that doesn't need to prove itself. When others panic, you remain grounded. When emotions rise, you become the space they rise in. When the world shouts, you listen deeper. This is the power of a sensitive soul anchored in awareness. It's not that you feel less. It's that you no longer get lost in what you feel. Radha used to say, "The one who knows silence can walk through fire unharmed." Because silence is not avoidance. It's alignment with the unshakable part of you. Every day, return to yourself in small silences. A breath between sentences. A pause before responding. A moment of gratitude before sleep. These are not empty pauses. They are sacred thresholds. Each one reconnects you to the divine rhythm underneath your thoughts. Radha told her disciples, "Make silence your companion. It will teach you everything." Because silence, unlike the mind, never lies. It doesn't flatter, doesn't dramatize, doesn't divide. It only reflects truth, gently, faithfully, and in that reflection, you finally see you never needed to be healed. You only needed to listen. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your heart as a quiet room. No clutter, no noise, only the steady glow of a candle. This is who you've been searching for. Not a perfect version of yourself, but the silent witness beneath it all. Stay here a while. Let the light speak without words. Because this stillness, is not an escape from life. It is life itself, unmasked. When you finally rest in silence long enough, you discover that it has a language of its own. It doesn't speak in sentences. It moves through intuition, timing, synchronicity. It arranges your outer world to mirror your inner state. Radha would tell her students, the divine speaks only one word, be. When you stop chasing guidance, it begins to arrive naturally. When you stop demanding signs, you start living as one. Silence isn't the absence of communication. It's direct communion, the soul listening to itself through the quiet. In the still mirror of awareness, your mind becomes transparent. You begin to see your patterns, how you reach for distraction when emotion stirs, how you create noise to avoid depth. But now, instead of judging yourself, you smile gently and stay. Awareness alone is purification. Radha compared it to sunlight shining through water. The light doesn't fight the murkiness. It simply reveals it until the water clears by itself. That is the silent miracle. No violence, no fixing, only illumination. There will be days when you crave company, and yet silence calls louder. You will sit alone and feel waves of emotion rise, loneliness, boredom, even fear. Stay. These are the layers the mind must shed before it remembers peace. Radha said, solitude is the furnace where personality burns and essence begins to glow. In solitude, you meet the part of you that does not need approval, does not need explanation, does not even need words. That part is your soul, silent, unwavering, eternal. If you listen closely, you'll hear it, the pause between each heartbeat. That pause is your doorway into the infinite. In that brief silence, the world disappears and only awareness remains. You have been this silence all along, the watcher behind every thought, the space between every breath. Radha taught her students to meditate not on images or mantras, but on this living stillness itself. She said, when you recognize the pause, you touch the timeless. The world may call sensitivity weakness, but awareness calls it a temple sense, the ability to feel what others cannot yet perceive. You were not meant to harden yourself. You were meant to refine your perception until it became love in motion. The sensitive soul, anchored in silence, feels without drowning, listens without absorbing, loves without losing itself. This is not fragility, this is mastery. Radha said, when awareness meets compassion, sensitivity becomes wisdom. Sometimes silence isn't about withdrawing from people. It's about meeting them differently. When someone speaks to you from their pain, don't rush to answer. Listen until the noise dissolves. Your quiet presence becomes medicine. Radha's students often said she could heal without saying a word, because her silence wasn't empty. It was full of attention. Try this. Next time you're with someone suffering, offer less advice and more space. Let your stillness do the talking. True silence isn't found only in meditation halls. It follows you into the kitchen, the office, the street. Every act can become sacred if performed with awareness. When you wash a cup, wash it as if you are washing the mind. When you walk, let each step echo, I am here. When you speak, let every word emerge from stillness first. Radha taught that yoga is not what you do for an hour a day. It's how you live the other 23. In silence, life itself becomes the teacher. There is a sound beneath all sounds, a subtle vibration that mystics call the nada, the hum of creation. When your inner noise quiets, you can begin to hear it, the silent music of being. Radha described it as the voice of the divine breathing. It's not something to chase or imagine. It appears naturally, like a note remembered. This is why silence feels sacred, because it is the echo of the source itself. After deep silence, you will return to the noise of the world, traffic, conversation, responsibilities. The test is not to stay detached, but to carry silence into sound. Radha would say, let the world be loud, stay inwardly quiet. You can speak, act, create, and still remain rooted in stillness. It's not retreat from life, it's resurrection within it. When others lose themselves in chaos, you remember the quiet current beneath it all. That remembrance is the true healing. 21. The sacred yes. At a certain point, silence gives birth to a single word. Yes. Yes to being human. Yes to feeling deeply. Yes to both joy and grief. This yes is not resignation, it is surrender. It says, let life move through me. Radha believed that enlightenment isn't escaping the world's dualities, but saying yes to their rhythm. Silence teaches you this acceptance, the strength to let things be without collapsing or clinging. 22. When the mind becomes a lake. Imagine your mind as a restless lake. Thoughts are the wind, emotions are ripples, memories are fallen leaves. At first, the water seems unmanageable, but with time, the surface settles. Reflections appear again. Silence is that settling. Not forced calm, but natural stillness when awareness stops stirring the water. Radha said, when the lake is clear, the moon knows where to rest. Let your awareness be that lake, and the light of consciousness will always find you. 23. The inner sanctuary. In the heart of every being lies a sanctuary untouched by time or trauma. You don't build it, it's always been there. You only rediscover it when the noise fades. Sit quietly and ask, what if nothing about me needs fixing? Listen to the stillness that follows. That's your soul answering. Radha's meditation rooms were simple. No statues, no music, only space. She believed silence itself was the most direct form of prayer. In that space, she said, even God stops speaking, because everything has already been said. 24. The light in quiet hearts. The world's loudest people rarely change it. It's the quiet hearts who do. Every saint, every teacher, every enlightened soul began by listening within. You too can be that quiet force, the calm in the storm, the pause in the argument, the silence that softens anger. When light lives in you, it needs no announcement. Its presence is felt, not heard. Radha called this the fragrance of awareness. It spreads without intention. 25. The gift of rest. Sensitive souls spend lifetimes trying to earn rest. But rest isn't a reward, it's the original state of being. Silence returns you to that sacred rest. Not sleep, but the still alertness where nothing needs to be achieved. In that state, your nervous system recalibrates. Your energy stops leaking. Your heart finally exhales. Radha said, the most profound healing is to do nothing consciously. Let the mind stop laboring. Let the soul breathe itself back to balance. 26. The paradox of silence. As you grow more silent, you will notice something paradoxical. The world becomes more alive. Colors brighten. Sounds deepen. Time slows. Because silence doesn't meet life, it amplifies it. When the mind stops filtering reality, we experience it directly, raw, immediate, divine. Radha's face, students said, often glowed as if lit from within. She was not trying to be radiant. She had simply stopped resisting what was. 27. Silence as prayer. Silence is the highest form of prayer because it requires nothing and gives everything. You sit without demand. You listen without agenda. And slowly, you begin to feel the presence that has been listening with you all along. Radha once wrote, "When you pray in silence, you realize the listener and the speaker are the same. In that moment, you are no longer seeking God. You are remembering you were never apart." 28. The return to the world. Eventually, all mystics must return. You will rejoin the noise, carry groceries, answer emails, meet people. But now you move differently. There's space inside every action. Stillness between every word. Silence no longer depends on quiet places. It lives inside you. Radha called this living meditation. She said, "The awakened one does not escape the world. They illuminate it by walking through it quietly." 29. The blessing of silence. So here, at the end of this journey, know this: you do not need to be fixed. You do not need to chase peace. You only need to stop mistaking noise for life. Silence is not absence. It is the fullness you were missing all along. When you let it fill you, your sensitivity becomes sacred vision. Your pain becomes depth. Your life becomes prayer. Radha said, "Silence is the language of the soul. Learn to speak it, and the universe will understand you." 30. Closing meditation. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let every muscle soften. Let the breath find its own rhythm. Now imagine a still lake at dawn. Mist rises. A single ray of sun touches the surface. That lake is your mind. That light is your awareness. No need to fix the reflection. No need to chase the sun. Just watch. The water clears. The light deepens. And you, the witness, are at peace. You were never broken. You were only loud. Now you are home again. May silence become your teacher. May stillness return you to yourself. May every pause reveal the divine behind motion. And may your sensitivity become the instrument through which love hears the world. Because sensitive souls don't need healing. They need remembering. They need listening. They need silence.